Ellsberg Show, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we have done show after show after show on bullying, and especially in the state of New Jersey, where I live and where my son plays sports and goes to school, and they have the toughest bullying laws in the country. But can an NFL player, a National Football League player, be bullied? Or is it beyond that? Is it criminal and you're just calling it bullying? Here's what's happened. Miami Dolphins guard Richie Incognito has been suspended by the team. He allegedly sent teammate Jonathan Martin text messages and voicemails that were threatening and racially charged in nature, in addition to other acts of I would call it intimidation, harassment, maybe even thuggery, and maybe if when it comes to demanding money, maybe extortion. But to call it bullying, I don't know. Here to sort it all out for us is a man who I have known for over 30 years. For those of you who go back to me on WABC Radio, the Art Rush Jr. days, of course, you know him as Arbush, who was a former publisher and editor of Pro Football Weekly. He's now sideline reporter for Westwood One for the NFL. And you could read him and watch him at hubarkish.com. Hub, always just great to talk to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Steve. It is good to be with you and get to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I congratulations. I don't know if you want me to say this, but I'm being a grandfather. So, a lot happens in 30 years, I guess.
Yeah, well, first of all, getting older beats the alternative.
That's true.
And, yeah, no, it's all good stuff, and it's great to be back with you again.
Well, I know you're taking time out. You're preparing for tonight's Bears-Packers game, and we look forward to hearing you on that. But let me ask you about this. I mean, forget what we call it right now. I mean, I have seen some of the stuff that ESPN has put out as the transcript of what Richie Incognito, who is not a man without a troubled past, has allegedly tweeted to Jonathan Martin, who we should point out left the team because he claimed he was being bullied. And I can't even read. Hey, what's up, you half blank piece of blank? I saw you on Twitter. You've been training 10 weeks. I want to blank in your blanking mouth. I'm going to slap your blanking mouth. I'm going to slap your real mother across the face. I will kill you. I mean, this isn't bullying. This is if it's true, the rantings of a sick man who really needs to be put away somewhere or taken off the team.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what the Dolphins have done, at least indefinitely, if not permanently. When you talk about bullying, it suggests, at least to me, intimidation and infliction of great mental anguish by intimidation and just by being cruel. This goes way beyond that. I mean, this is threatening. It is definitely racial in nature, and as you point out, Richie Incognito, it's reasonable to report as a reporter that he's not a good guy. I mean, when you look at this guy's troubled past, and you start to see some of this evidence, and we're just looking at the tip of the iceberg right now, according to people I've talked to with the organization. It's almost sociopathic, and it's scary, and it's just wrong. And so, can an NFL player be bullied? I suppose they can, but it's worse than that. This is, one player threatening, physical harm and danger to a player's family. And the question I keep asking myself, well, where are all his teammates? This is an offensive line thing. This is, the right guard and the left tackle who's now the right tackle. And it's not as if there's any chance that there weren't 5, 6, 7 other guys who were watching all this going on. And you just wonder how it possibly could have gotten to this point if there were any involvement.
Well, yeah. Plus, there were reports that I think that the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will, and made him leave or forced him to leave in his own mind, was when they were sitting down to eat, and when he came over with his tray, a bunch of them got up and left the table and went somewhere else. So, I mean, even though they may not have been participating to this extent, and they may not have known about these racist, threatening tweets, if they are in fact true, there were other players apparently, in on at least some of the harassment.
Well, and it's hard to imagine, flat-out racism in an NFL locker room with an NFL team. The league is over 70% African-American, and some of his line mates are as well. So I don't think that the organized team aspect of it is necessarily racist in nature. I think this is why people are using the expression bullying. It comes down to the biggest bully in the group, picking on the perceived weak link. It's really not that simple. I'm sure you're aware that this is a young man with a degree from Stanford who's extremely bright, whose parents both have from Harvard, and it's almost as if he's like a nerd in the group and probably too smart for the rest of them, smart enough, at least in his own mind, not to like that. And then
all right, Chahub, we're having a little trouble. Your cell's dying out a little, so maybe if you can move around just while I tell everybody who you are again and what we're doing. We're talking to Hub Arbush, sideline reporter for the NFL for Westwood One. He's in Green Bay for the Bears and the Packers. We could talk about that at the end of the interview here a little bit and see what he thinks. And also, of course, you could check him out at Hub Arbush, HUBARKUSH, hubarbush.com. And we are talking about the suspension of Richie Incognito of the Miami Dolphins for allegedly, they're calling it bullying. I just think that's a total misnomer, for harassing, allegedly, threatening, allegedly, sending out racially charged, sexual, life-threatening tweets, allegedly, to Jonathan Martin of the Dolphins, his teammate, and Martin left the team last week. Pending the outcome of all of this, the NFL is investigating. The Dolphins have suspended Incognito. And Incognito, you go back to 2003, he was suspended by Nebraska when he played at college, his college ball at Nebraska. He was convicted in 2004 of misdemeanor assault charge. In 2004, he also suspended by the Nebraska coach for a repeated violation of team rules. In 2004, he was dismissed from Oregon's football program after transferring there. In 2009, he was voted the NFL's dirtiest player by the players. In 2009, also released by the Rams 2 days after being penalized twice for personal fouls and arguing with his own coach. In 2011, Raiders defensive tackle Richard Seymour was fined $30,000 for punching Incognito during a game. And this year, in August, Antonio Smith of the Texans was suspended a week for swinging a helmet at him during a game. So, as we alluded to, I just gave the rundown, the history of Incognito's problems with suspensions and even misdemeanor assault charges throughout his collegiate and NFL career.
As I said at the top, I mean, basically he's not a good guy, and yet this goes so far beyond being not a good guy to you just wonder what goes on in the heads of people like this. And I continue, as I've said, to be troubled by where his teammates were. I guess the whole bullying idea comes up from the fact that Martin was clearly isolated amongst the offensive line unit, apparently in the locker room with the whole team, even though this is something well beyond bullying. And the question that's going to be asked, and I hate when it goes here, but it does have to be asked, is was Martin just sitting back and quietly taking this and not talking to anybody? Was he making no attempt on his own to diffuse it or put an end to it? Again, he's the victim. I'm not suggesting he's not in any way, but the fact that he left the team and reportedly checked himself into a facility to get some help, as much as Incognito's actions are inexcusable, that's the other piece that makes this story so much bigger and so much harder for us to get our arms around.
Absolutely. And if he did seek help from the Dolphins, if he did speak to the coach or the general manager or his agent did, and I don't know, that maybe you do for sure, and they did nothing, then they're culpable as well. But I just don't see how Incognito comes back to this team. And I don't know. I mean, how do you think this is all gonna work out? And do you think this is at all symptomatic of any goings on around the NFL on other clubs?
Well, Steve, I've been doing this 35 years. Let me take the last part first. No, this is not symptomatic of normal life in the NFL. There is hazing. It's rookie hazing for the most part. Sometimes it goes a little further than you would like, but I've never heard a story quite like this one where one player got so isolated, within his own position group and in the locker room. I can't imagine Richie Incognito coming back to the Dolphins. I can't imagine another team putting him in their locker room at this point because again, we've only seen the tip of the iceberg on the evidence on this stuff, and it's obviously been going on for a while. So, I mean, there's always a team that's willing to take a chance because of the talent. The guy did go to the Pro Bowl in 2012. There's always a coach or a GM who says, "Well, I can fix what's wrong with that guy." But in this particular case, as the evidence continues to come out, I tend to believe that Richie Incognito is done in the NFL, and I don't know what Jonathan Martin's future is.
Yeah.
Because he's going to wear this now. Even though he was the victim, there are those who are going to say, well, why didn't you do more to defend yourself, to defuse it? And, I think it's got to be tough for him to go back in that Dolphin locker room, although I think there's a good chance that he will. And it'll be very curious to see when that happens and how he's received.
All right, let me ask a couple of questions. First, before we get to tonight's game, Hub, Kansas City, I heard all the experts talking about how, it's going to be a real tough game for Kansas City because they're going, Buffalo, they're going into Buffalo, and Buffalo's hungry, and they got to win. It's a must-win for Buffalo, and Kansas City's way overrated. Now, I don't know how Kansas City's doing it, but do you believe Kansas City is for real, or are we going to see a tremendous collapse down the stretch?
Well, they're absolutely for real because they've got the best defense in the NFL right now, and they're very well coached, and they don't make mistakes on offense. Now, that said, they've played a ridiculously easy schedule,
right.
And quite frankly, it doesn't get any harder other than the two games with Denver. They got two with Denver and one with San Diego, who's a 500 team, and that's about it. This is just going to be one of those years. And by the way, Denver and Kansas City have very similar schedules, so you can't overrate the Broncos too much either. But that said, you can't fault these teams for playing the teams that are put in front of them. The Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL right now. The defense is absolutely for real. I think where they're going to have a problem is when they get in with teams like Denver or New England who can score a lot of points, is that offense going to be able to get into a track meet? Because so far that has. I love Jamal Charles, really like Alex Smith a lot. But to me, Dwayne Bowe is probably a notch below the Pro Bowl receiver folks treat him as. And other than that, they just don't have a lot of weapons in that passing game.
All right, what do we look for tonight, Monday Night Football, with you on the sidelines for Westwood One?
Well, Steve, these teams are so banged up that that's the hard part to figure out. The Packers have handled their injuries much better than the Bears have even thrived a little bit. They're a better team than the Bears. They've got Aaron Rodgers, the best player in football, arguably, right now. And they're at home, and they've beaten the Bears 6 straight. That said, 7 of the last 10 meetings between these two, and the oldest rivalry in the history of the game, have been decided by a touchdown or less. It seems like when these two get together, it doesn't matter if one's good and one's bad. And the Bears aren't bad. They're just kind of mediocre. They're always close games. The Bears have got more weapons on offense than what you're used to seeing from them. And so even with Josh McCown filling in at quarterback, I think there's a chance that the Bears make a game of it, but the Packers just appear to be the better football team, even with the injuries. They've been more banged up than the Bears, but they've responded better. And so at home in Lambeau on a primetime national TV, you got kind of like the Pack.
All right, listen, Hub, I hope you'll come back soon. We'll call you as this story progresses and as the playoffs get nearer. And so great to talk to you, my friend. And congratulations again on becoming Grandpa Hubbala.
All right, Steve. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. My pleasure. Hub Arkush, ladies and gentlemen. Check out hubarkush.com. HUBARKUSH.com. The man knows more about the game than anybody else. Player, commentator, writer, I don't care who. I'll put him up against anybody. All right, folks, you want to weigh in?